grace is the Greek greeting charis, which when the New Testament was written all by Hebrews when they began to combine and move forward. I'd like to begin with, once again, the black freedom struggle and the legacy and the promise at the crossroads. This isn't just the past, but it is present. When we speak about the black freedom struggle, we're speaking about today, along with the religious experience, when we just look at President Barack Obama. When we look at President Barack Obama right now, what is he being accused of? He's being accused of not being an American. He's being accused of not being born in America. So what he's being accused of is being illegitimate. He's being accused of being some form of a bastardized American, which means that he does not have the right to vote. So we see that what we're speaking about here is something that is still very relevant today, even to the point, even today, we heard that in PA, their Supreme Court is not going to cause people to get voter IDs before November the 3rd. But basically, it is the same issue over and over again. And what we begin to understand is that this issue, this issue of freedom, which is now also being passed over within the Latino community, and even as the Latinos here begin to find their African roots, we begin to find out that once again is the same issue of being respected as individuals, and the same issues of how freedom is defined in this country. Also, we also see that the religious experience also once again plays a key part. Once again, we have a sitting president, President Barack Obama, who confesses to be a Christian, but we have a great deal of American Christians who do not feel that he is Christian, nor do they feel that he validates being a Christian. And we saw these same things take place in the 60s. We saw these same things take place in the 50s. Once again, it's always been this ostracized community, which has been known as the black community, even to the point where you'll hear people speak about black liberation theology, as if Dr. Reverend Wright came up with it. But when you look at the black liberation theology, it has been the history of this country. A lot of black Americans have never heard of Thomas Peters. A lot of black Americans haven't heard of David George. David George and Thomas Peters, they fought in the Revolutionary War. But they fought with the British. And the reason that they fought with the British is because the British basically told them, if you fight with us, any slaves who break free and fight with us, we will give you your freedom. So within the history of this country, you've always had this dividing line of who is a Christian and who has the right to vote. But within that, it becomes struggling for your identity. And what we see is that there have always been two churches in America. There has been the American church, and then there has been another church. Within the American church, when we look at it today, the American church has always been against civil rights and equal rights. This is just factual. It was the American church who fought against civil rights. It was the American church who felt as if that was a break-off. Even when on the Republican side, when you had Herman Cain running for the presidency of the United States of America, he said he didn't join in with the civil rights movement because his parents did not allow it. Whereas my family was very different. My father, who was born in Richmond, my mother, who was born in Clarksville, Virginia, my parents grew up under Jim Crow segregation. My grandfather, Bishop John W. Pernell, who had over 5 degrees, who spoke over 5 languages, was not able to vote. He was not able to vote because you would have to keep having these crazy voter exams. And my mother's father, who was also a minister, they were not allowed to stay in hotels. They were not allowed to eat in restaurants. They had to eat in the back. So you always had this fight within you, but within the core of Christianity, within the core beliefs of Christianity, has always been a faith of struggle and a faith of fight. What do I mean about that? What we know as Christianity, or what is known as, the rabbi said, ecclesia, that did not truly begin until about 70 AD. Because what happened between 66 AD and 70 AD was the Jewish revolt. And as everyone who knows, who studies history, is that the Christian church is actually a sect of Judaism. Christianity is a break-off of Judaism. But before 66 AD, the center of Christianity was the Jewish temple. It was the Jewish temple. It was the Jewish temple was the meeting places. So it was during the Jewish revolt of 66 AD, and the Jews were revolting in order to keep their culture. Within the Jewish revolt, that's when you had a lot of Christians began to get their identity, recognizing that they had to die for their faith. Once again, this was carried over as they began to be dispersed into different lands. We also understand it within the black struggle and the Christian movement. What a lot of people do not know is that Christianity went to Africa way before it went to Europe. Christianity did not go to Europe until Acts chapter 16. And for all of us who can count, there are 15 chapters before that. And the first convert in Europe was a woman. But Christianity was a faith of liberation. And it was a faith of liberation because within Christianity, it gave people the freedom to use their mind and to use their heart. And once again, this was carried over into the struggle. But it was the black church that began to say that we must fight for our rights, we must fight for dignity, and we must fight for our respect. And that being inbred, and once again, the reason that I say inbred is because there are many Africans who were on the slave ships who were Christians. And we have to understand that so often people have a notion as if Christianity began in Europe. Christianity is not a European religion. Christianity, once again, is a Jewish religion started by Jews, and everything that is received in the canon today, all of the authors are Jewish. That being true, we have to also understand that within Judaism, unlike what is taught today, within Judaism, the Hebrew people were a people of color. This is all throughout the Torah, all throughout the prophets, and all throughout the writings. But once again, what does this instill? This instills a fight within us. Myself, I was born in 1966. I'm 46 years old. And being born in 1966, I can remember Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife, Coretta Scott, coming on TV, even though I was very young. I remember that. And of course, for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Newark riots changed everything. Actually, it was the Newark riots that invented malls. A lot of people don't know that. Malls were invented by the Newark riots because people refused, or a great deal of whites refused to come into the inner city to shop. But once again, you had that within the Christian community to fight, within the religious Christian community to fight. And the ones who spearheaded it was actually the Baptists. It was the Baptists and the African American churches. Whereas the Pentecostal movement was not so quick to move and fight for their struggles to not just civil rights, but as Malcolm X said so truthfully, human rights. And it wasn't until America was confronted with that you're not treating fellow Americans as human beings, that it began to put pressure around the world. And once again, when people began to take this into their faith, and when they began to take it into their faith, because I've always viewed Christianity as a faith of revolution. But within that faith of revolution, it is a constant fight with the status quo. It's a constant fight with the status quo of what should be allowed and what should not be allowed. You have many people who do not understand the New Testament, who will even go as far as to say or believe that the New Testament supported slavery. That is totally untrue. Another thing what people have to understand is that never confuse American slavery with the slavery that was around the world. American slavery is one of the most brutal forms of slavery that ever existed. People have to remember that people are not born slaves. Once again, when I spoke about Thomas Peters, he was a Nigerian, but he was captured when he was 23 years old. He was captured and enslaved. But when someone is born free, you can't teach them how to be a slave. And people were usually made slaves in what is known as the Caribbean. And I encourage everyone to read a book, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. A very good book that really reveals many things about the heart of Africa and so forth and so on. But within these things, is once again, it was inbred. It was inbred to fight, and there is a fight. Even today, where you'll see there's within the black community, there is almost a deadness to understand what was sacrificed in order for them to vote, or lazy spirit. But once again, being born in 1966, when you define the Black Power movement, the Black Power movement by some is defined as being birthed in 1966 through 1975. My father, who was a pastor, he's a scientist now teaching at the University of Virginia, but my father instilled in me to respect who I am, instilled in me to be a proud American, because this is your birthland, this is your homeland. Within that, you never can let the struggle go. And once again, I continue to say the struggle is still alive. The struggle has to be alive when you have other Christians telling another Christian that you are not a Christian. Because once they begin to say this, they can demonize you. Always remember, there's also always been an anti-government movement in our country. But this is the first time in our history that you can put a black face on the anti-American movement. And because you now can put a black face on the anti-American movement, you have a lot of people who would not be anti-government who are now anti-government. They are anti-government because now they can put a black face to that. But within that creates another form of moving forward. One of the things that greatly changed my life, 2 trips, many times. I've been to Israel a couple occasions, definitely been there during the Intifada. And I would have to say, in my travels to Israel, the people who did more for me than anyone was Arab people, but also my 2 years that I spent in Africa. Going to Africa and spending 2 years in Africa, my last trip was 2003, but my 2 years ended basically on 2002. You have within you that there's an inward struggle, and once again, that inward struggle begins spiritually. And it's of that spiritual identity. And within that spiritual identity, it causes you not to ever give up your struggle, because life in itself is a struggle. And I believe in these times in America is that I am a true believer that Christianity has to take back its roots. It has to take back its roots. When I mean take back its roots, it has to take back its roots and no longer be assigned or labeled from a European perspective of Christianity, but from a worldwide perspective. Thank you very much.